Trizinger. That's what I started riding on. I was 5 years old. I got my first motorcycle in 1985. That was a 1985 model, and I got it on Valentine's Day. I was at home, and my dad came home from work, and he says, "Hey, I want to take you down to the motorcycle store." And he took me down to Ronnie Tishner's motorcycle shop, and it was a Yamaha dealership, and it was called Cycle Springs. And he took me down there, my dad did, and asked me if I would like a dirt bike. And I'm like, yeah, of course I would like. And that bike you see right there on the screen was my first motorcycle. I wish that I still had it, but we had to sell it to get another motorcycle. So that's when I started racing. How did I get into racing? A lot of people always ask me that question, and my cousins actually did it, and we were really close with my cousins. So they got us into racing, and that's how it kind of that's why my dad took me down, because he saw my cousins racing and they really liked it, and I'm like, man, I want to do that. Now that last picture that we saw on the Trizinger, we had to sell that to get this bad boy. That is a that is a Honda 50. Okay, these bikes were awesome back in the day, and all I wanted for Christmas was one of these Honda 50s. They are so much fun. As I got older and started going to Loretta Lynn's, these things were kind of used as pit bikes. Things are a lot different now, but these bikes were something special. I believe that bike was a 1987. You can see some trophies in the background there from winning some Florida races. That was still early in my career. Then after the 50s, we moved up to the 60s. And for some of you guys that live in Florida that might be on this webinar right now, that was me in 1987. And I hated wearing jerseys. Little fun fact. I hated wearing jerseys. I hated wearing gloves, and I hated wearing goggles. So I was out there doing some practice at a place called Croom. So a lot of you guys that live in Central Florida, I'm sure you guys have heard of it. But I put in countless hours there, and that's where I learned really to start riding. And that's where I rode majority of my life, with the exception of when I was racing at different tracks. But this was my practice track. It was open to the public. It's a national forest, state park, pardon me. It's a state park. And that was a picture taken. I have no idea who took that picture, but pretty funny. Yeah, it was, for some reason I hated wearing jerseys, gloves, and goggles. And of course you can see my white helmet, cue ball helmet. But so I had that blue Trizinger, then I had the Honda 50. And then when I was done with the Honda 50s, I went to the 60s. And then that leads us to this next picture. And it is 1988. And this is in, man, I want to say it's Ponca City, but that might be, looking at the ground, Jeff, you might have to click in on this one. That might be World Minis in Vegas. Seems like the dirt's a little too gray to be, gray to be Ponca City. So yeah, that was my first national title that I ever got. My parents took me to Las Vegas, Nevada, and I raced 3 classes. I raced I believe it was I think I raced a Pee Wee modified class, and then I raced the 60 class, which they're 65s now, the 60 class, and it was a 6 to 8 stock and modified. And I cleaned house, man. I won all 3 championships in dominating fashion. And that was my first national title as an amateur. And a fun fact for this story, how we got out there was my dad had a Harley Fat Boy, and he sold his Harley to buy our plane tickets out there and to buy me a new KX60 to race out there. And that's how we were able to race that race. And I remember telling him when I was the age you see right there on the screen, I remember telling him if I turn professional someday, that I would buy his Harley back. So 1997, when I turned professional and signed my first professional contract with Pro Circuit Kawasaki, the first thing that I did when I got my first paycheck, monthly installment, I went out and I bought my dad a 1997 Fat Boy Harley. So I paid him back, and I never forgot that moment right there, and how I got to that race with that picture that you see right there. So a lot of history, and that race right there is very, very special to me.
Got some sweet shorts there, Ricky. I really like it.
Yeah, you like that? I mean,
nice.
that was in. That was in. All right, so then we're fast forwarding. This was a night that I will never forget. I think, let's see here. This is 2005, and it's Atlanta Supercross. It was my first year on Suzuki. That's why I'm on the two-stroke there. And this was the last time that a two-stroke 250 machine won the Supercross championship. And this was 2005. This was about midway through the series, Atlanta, at the old Atlanta, Georgia Dome. Now we race at the Mercedes-Benz Dome. And I was leading this race. I passed into the lead, and then I fell down, and then had to get back up and play catch up. And I believe that night I passed Chad in the same corner twice, if my mind serves me right. It may not. Seems like I'm getting pretty forgetful these days, so per my friends. But that was a great night, and I'll tell you guys why it was a great night. It was a great night because I was just in one of those zones where it was really easy for me. The laps were coming together. It seems like I couldn't make any mistake. I was really in tune with my bike. I could see every single line, every single like pebble of dirt. My vision was so crisp and clear, and I just was flowing on the bike. And as I passed Chad for the lead, I started to pull away just a little bit. I fell down. I didn't panic. I got right back up, and I could slowly start to inch up on him. And I'm like, oh, man. So in Monster Energy Supercross, that feeling doesn't happen very often, just because it's so hard to win races, and the competition that you're racing against is so incredibly talented. But this night was just one of those nights where I was on rails and was not going to be denied. Another thing that makes it so special is anytime that I could beat Chad Reed, it was extra special. And the reason it was because, if you can remember, in 2003, basically the half tail end of the Supercross series, he absolutely crushed me, and I had nothing for him. I had my reasons of why, it was such a challenge, and he got the best of me. But at the same time, he was riding really well and getting the job done. So I wasn't able to ride 2004 Supercross series because I tore my ACL. So I came into the 2005 Supercross series rested, ready, and ready to pounce. And I wanted revenge on Chad. So to be able to pass him, I believe it was twice that night, and beat him was special. And one last thing about that race, to make it even extra special, it was my hometown race. Other than Daytona, this would be my second hometown race. The fans were just epic that night, just, off of their seats, standing up the whole time. And it was a lot of fun. One of my favorite ones. Oh man, this picture is so special. This was the Motocross of Nations, the same year as this last picture that we saw before at Atlanta Supercross. This was 2005, Ernée, France, Motocross of Nations, USA won, and what a weekend that was. Every guy on the team rode fantastic. We did exactly what we had to do. It was a perfect executed race. And for me, you know, it went fun. The track was awesome. The dirt was a lot. That track really reminded me of Millville. For those of you that have been to Millville, that track was very, very close to that as far as the dirt goes. Now I'm going to go to something for school. This was where a time in my career, and I thank JH for this. We had an off day. Let's see here. We landed on Thursday. We went and warmed up the bikes broke the bikes in at a little local track close to the venue. Friday we had off, and JH was a history major in college. So we went to the beaches of Normandy. And everybody knows, most of you guys know that are studying world history and know a little bit about it. That's where the beaches of Normandy is where, you know, D-Day was, and that's where it was. Was it 1942? So we got to see. I went to Omaha Beach, and it was awesome. I didn't make it to Point du Hoc, but as far as world history goes and World War II, it was definitely special. And I never really, and shame on me, I never really paid attention much to this stuff when I was in school. And as soon as I went there and got to experience this history of world history and United States history, what that site meant, I was kicking myself in the rear because I wish I would have known more about it. So from that point on, I've had a incredible amount of appreciation for world history and even now U.S. history. It's just, it's so fun to me to learn. And, you know, turning back the pages, when I was in school, I really wish that I would have paid attention more in those classes, because now all the great places that I get to travel, I would know more about them and, you know, be more up to speed on our country's history. And of course, if I go overseas, world history. Thankfully, I bring JH with me, and he went to college to learn all about this stuff. So he's kind of educating me and telling me the significance of all these special places that we go. So what a special weekend for everybody. Let's see, I got a question from Emig. Who is JH? So JH is the bald-headed dude. I'm sure you guys see him all the time traveling with me. He's JH, JH Leal. He is basically the president of RC Racing. That's our company. We also have a management company that we do together where we manage a couple riders, a couple professional riders in moto. And he's one of my best friends. He's been with me since 1998. And just a great friend, a great ambassador for the sport of motocross and supercross. You guys see him running around all the time, some of the amateur races, a lot of the pro races. And he's kind of got his hands in everything for the good of the sport, always trying to improve it and progress it. So that's who JH is. Now, this next picture, 2012, hadn't raced a race, well, since I retired from professional racing in 2007. Hadn't raced a race until I tried to qualify for Loretta Lynn's. I can't even remember where my area qualifier was. Actually, it was at Aonia Pass is where my qualifier was. And it was fun. I bit off a little bit more than I can chew. But the reason that I wanted to do that is because I wanted to go to Loretta Lynn's with no pressure. Ever since I was a young kid racing Loretta Lynn's, it always felt like when I went there, I couldn't enjoy it because there was always this expectation of having to win and perform for my sponsors, you know, because at a very young age, I was able to see the sacrifices that my parents made to get me to where I was. So I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to let them down. And I most certainly didn't want to let my sponsors down. So I always told myself someday if I had the opportunity to go back, and I had children as well, I would like to go back there and race Loretta's, enjoy the week with no pressure. Did I want to win this year? Of course I did. Was it going to change my life if I didn't or did? Of course not. This was more of an experience for my children, to kind of see how I grew up and show them the motocross community and the motocross world. They had a wonderful time. They're always begging me, Dad, will you go race Loretta's again? And I would love to go back sometime, and I plan to. It's just working it out on the calendar. But this is special. This is special for me, most importantly because my kids enjoyed it. My friend let us use his motorhome, so we parked up on the hill there, and it was a great time, really good time. Let's see here. This is Southwick. Just a just a picture of my attempt at a pretty lame scrub, if you will. I don't have a whole lot to say about Southwick other than I hated racing there. A lot of people like, man, you must have loved racing there, because I grew up in the sand, so it was relatively easy for me. But man, I hated racing there. You get all dirty, getting sandblasted all over the place. The only thing that I liked about Southwick is that it was really physically demanding, and only the strong survive. So that's what I love. That's what I love about it. Here you go. So this is where Fro had the easiest part of the school right here. But this right here was our inaugural Ricky Carmichael University, and it was at Daytona International Speedway. It was the day after our amateur race that we had there. And JH came up with this idea along with Davey Coombs and Tim Cotter and myself, and even Fro in the mix. But this was special. You can see all the riders there. I think we had groups of 3. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff. And we broke out for those of you that haven't been to RCU, we broke out the track in sections. I had corners. Jeff was on the starting gate. Jeff Stanton was on another set of corners. And Kevin Foley, multi-time Loretta Lynn's champion in his own right, and a Florida boy at the time, was one of our instructors. So it was a fantastic time. Not only was it fun, I think, for the riders and the parents, but just to give that experience to all these guys in a place like Daytona International Speedway, where it has a rich racing history. It was special. And what I want everybody to understand about the Ricky Carmichael University and what we work hard to do is when we have them, we try to make it an experience, first and foremost. And then after that, we want everyone to learn. We understand, all of our coaches, we understand that we know that our way might not be the right way for everyone, but if you can take a little bit from each guy, that's what it's all about. So first and foremost, we try to put on a good experience for you guys, enjoyable, and try to teach you and help you learn at the same time. This was clearly a photo shoot of some sort, but this is another stage of my racing career. So when I was done racing Supercross and Motocross 2007, I raced part-time 2007. And while I wasn't racing my motorcycle, I was racing cars. I did some late model races here in Florida, New Smyrna Beach, Lake City, Orlando, a couple tracks, raced there quite a bit to get my feet wet to someday graduate up to the NASCAR, their top 3 divisions, which is Truck Series, as you see right there, the NASCAR Xfinity Series, and of course the Monster Energy Cup Series. I raced the first year in 2007, like locally around the state of Florida. Then I moved up to what would be a regional series. So you know how Supercross has the Eastern Region 250 class, the Western Region 250 class. I raced NASCAR's version of that in a race car. I did that for a year. That was 2008. And then 2009, 10, and 11, I raced the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. It was an incredible experience. I love it very much. I would do it in a heartbeat again. I met a lot of great friends. I learned a lot about math and aerodynamics, how aerodynamics works. And the crazy thing on these trucks, and unfortunately I didn't learn it until too late in my career, but it's all aerodynamics. These trucks are so aerodependent, but you could make people crash, or people could make you crash by not even touching you, by taking air away from your spoilers and wickers, air wickers on the side there. So that's happened to me several times. You can go on YouTube and check out Ricky Carmichael NASCAR tracks. Crashed a lot on my own as well, but it was fun to learn just how aerodynamics could affect things, and as far as math. So everything in a car works crossways. So the front left tire works with the right rear tire. The front left works with the right rear. The right front works with the left rear. So everything, we call it, is cross. So I learned a lot there, and just it was a fantastic experience. They have really great fans, but it was an experience that I will never forget, and would love to do it again. I don't know what this was. This might be a video. But,
it is. It is. Do you want me to go ahead and play it real quick?
Yeah, let's play it.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
All right, hold on.
It's not presenting.
Uh-oh, yeah, I didn't see a thing. That's okay. You know, I got some fun stuff to talk about anyways. So stop. No, you guys can't get it. My kids want to show you the medal. Oh, here we go.
There it is.
Yeah, this is my real moto video. I can't tell you how much I hated filming for that, by the way, because every single jump was blind, and we were in the trees. And the first day that we started filming, there was a tree branch that had tipped over, and I did exactly what I tell my riders that I help not to do. I wasn't paying attention, and I fell in an area where we weren't even filming. I was circling around to go film where I was circling around to get the next shot. So anyhow, I do this jump and I'm in midair, and I just completely run into a tree branch. It grabs my front brake, throws me sideways. I land. Luckily, I made it over the double, but when I land, I got caught up in the rear wheel. I broke a bunch of ribs. Felt like I broke a rib. Felt like I busted all of my ribs, and thought like my insides hurt, could barely move. I got bruises to prove it. It wasn't very fun. So it didn't start off well, but a lot of those jumps were blind. So it made it really, really hard. And as far as like timing, it was tough. But like every day I went out there, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to do this. So I think I bit off more than I can chew. I'm happy that it turned out the way that it did. I'm more excited for Jack Berg, our filmmaker. I think that he did a fantastic job because of the shots that he was trying to get were really tight and narrow rather than, you know, zooming out and panning out, and we're in the mountains and it's, you know, you can just kind of pan out and have a long, big angle view. His were really tight. The shadows were tough to deal with, the noise. So at the end of the day, I thought he did a great job as far as our videography, and I'm happy for him, and hopefully it has opened up opportunities for him to grow his business and keep excelling, and hopefully it's opened up some doors for him. With that said, one thing that I know, shoot, we already been talking for a while, but one thing that I wanted to tell you guys, and I think this is important for anything in life, okay? Anything that you do, whether it's school, whether it's racing, whether it's sport, always give it 100%. Always hold yourself accountable. You don't want to look back, or at least for me, I didn't want to look back and say, dang, I wish I would have done this. Because a lot of times you don't get second chances in certain disciplines of whatever, of any sport. You know, sometimes you might, but most of the time you don't. So it's extremely important to do things the right way and hold yourself accountable. And all of you guys know, well, no matter what your age is, guys, girls, no matter what your age is, you know deep in your heart, deep down inside yourself, if you're giving it 100% or not. I tell my riders that. I tell when I go to meetings and companies and talking to the sales teams or upper management, you know, and motivational speeches, I always tell them you have to hold yourself accountable. And I'm going to give you a little explanation of one day when I didn't hold myself accountable. I was at my practice track, and it was later in my career, and I was practicing, and I always gave it 100%. But this one day, it's not that my riding when I was on the bike, I was giving it 100% when I was on my bike, but where I cheated myself is I didn't finish up or do what I probably should have done. So I did my motos, and then I was going to practice a couple of corners after that. And I had practiced, I did my motos and I practiced one section of corners. And then I went out to go do the second section of corners. And I can't exactly remember what the condition was like of the track that day, but I don't know. I was struggling clearly. And once I was, I don't know, my mom and I were going back and forth. I'm like, you know what? I'm done for the day. And I went back to the shop. I got undressed, got in my street clothes, and was driving down the driveway of my farm. And I got about 3/4 of the way down the driveway, and I'm like, you know what? This just isn't me. I turned around. I drove back up the driveway, got my gear back on. Yeah, it was nasty and sweaty, so I should have just did it the right way the first time, given it 100%, and held myself accountable for that turn. I wouldn't have to put on sweaty gear. And I went back out there and I finished up the turn practice. And for me, mentally, I was like a guy for what really got me fired up for the weekends was how my week went of practice. So if I had a really good week of practice, I could go into the weekend knowing that I prepared the best that I possibly could. So I went back out there, I finished it up. And it only took me like 8 to 10 minutes. You know, it wasn't even that much. So the point of it is I didn't hold myself accountable at first, but I went back out there and did it. After my practice was done, I felt great about myself, and I felt good going into the weekend. So always hold yourself accountable, and also be honest with yourself. You know, I see sometimes No matter if it's in its racing, I see it in racing a lot, and sometimes school with a couple people sitting here with me watching this right here next to me, got my little ones, with homework. You got to get that homework done. You got to hold yourself accountable. It's just like going out and practicing corners or doing your motos or your sprint laps, whatever it might be. Hold yourself accountable, get it done. Okay. You don't want to have to, for school, I always tell my kids, you need to prepare for these tests. So you go in there and you're ready to go. You don't want to go to the test, not do well, and then say, dang, I wish I would have prepared for it a little bit better. Sometimes you don't have a second chance. So do the best you can. Be honest with yourself also. Like my kids know, and you guys on this webinar know, if you're cheating yourself on something, whether it's homework, whether it's at the track. So be honest with yourself. Do it the right way. Especially you guys that are racing or are into sports. Your parents spend an incredible amount of money to get you where you want to be. So take advantage of that, and don't take advantage of them. Take advantage of the opportunity that you got, and do the best that you can. And I tell you, it will really help. And also, one other thing that I would like to tell you guys is set realistic expectations. Okay. And what I mean by that, and I see this happen quite a bit as well, like some of the other stuff that we talked about, is knowing what your realistic expectation is. And if you can, everybody wants to win, right? But if and you're being honest with yourself that it's physically not possible, well, don't go out there and try to win. If fifth is all you got, then try to get fifth. But if you don't set realistic expectations, then how are you ever going to be satisfied? And at the end of the day, as long as you work and try as hard as you can, that's all that matters. And how you do is how you do. If you go out there and you ride as hard as you can, you don't fall down, you make minimal mistakes, and you didn't get beat because of something silly and all you got was fifth, well, you can't be upset with yourself because you did the best that you could. And if you set realistic expectations, you're going to be a lot more positive. You won't get down in the dumps if you don't perform like some of the other guys. You can only do as good as you are. And so what I mean by that is setting, realistic expectations. There were times when I knew that I couldn't win, set a lot, especially in my professional career. So my expectations for certain nights would be different. If I knew that I wasn't faster than Chad on a given night, or I wasn't faster than McGrath on a given night, or if I wasn't as fast as James on a given night, my goal would be, okay, I at least want to get second place tonight, or at least be on the podium. That is my goal. And then if something happens outside of that, then good. Then it's a win for me. I'm going to, give you an example. If I knew I couldn't beat James, it was just physically impossible to do that, then my goal was to keep him as close as possible and maybe force him into mistake and try to win that way. If I was going to go to the line, of course I wanted to win, but I knew that he was faster than me, so things had to happen for me to beat him. If I went into the race and I'd been slower than him or Chad or whoever it was all day long, how could I just automatically make myself faster and he's going to get slower? It's not going to happen. So go out there, and if you're a third place guy, get third place and make it a close third place. But if you don't have first place speed, you can't expect to win. And if you expect to win when you don't have first place speed, you're setting yourself up for failure, and you don't want to do that. So set realistic expectations, always give it 100%, and always hold yourself accountable. That to me means everything. And I think everyone on here knows if you're holding yourself accountable, if you're giving it 100%, okay, and work on setting realistic expectations. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's really it. That's my little advice that I have. And one thing that I can tell you today, and I'm going to do it because my good friend Jeff Emig has inspired me to do so. And I said I was going to do it when he started to do it. And I didn't do it. Shame on me. But I'm going to get my high school education. I went to school all the way through my first 9 weeks of my 11th grade, my junior year. I didn't need to do homeschooling. I think homeschooling is better now, but I made it all the way through school until then. And the reason that I stopped going is I had a pretty legitimate excuse. This was my first year being professional, so I had a professional contract, and I was called upon to go out to California and test, and I was going to be out there for 2 weeks. So that's my story, man. I'm going to get my high school education again. I'm going to get it. I'm going to.
I'm stoked for you, Ricky.
What's that?
I'm stoked. You didn't tell me this.
Well, I'm going to. I mean, I told you I wanted to, but I'm going to, like, I guess wanting to and going to is two different things, but it's just, honestly, it's just embarrassing, when somebody says, hey, when did you graduate? And Fro, I don't know how you felt about it, but, people say, hey, when did you graduate? And I'm like, well, I didn't graduate,
Still working on it.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's good. Still working on it.
Hey, hold on. This is just algebra. This is where I'm starting right now. My new look at how thick this thing is.
Don't scare him now, Jeff. Don't scare him.
No, it's good. It's good. I love it. I love it. So I hope everybody liked what I had to say and liked my story. Does anybody have any questions? Like, I'm all here for you guys. So tell me, you guys.
Use the chat. Use the chat and ask a question, or we can read it for you, whatever you're more comfortable with. Okay, there's a question.
I have a question. Go for it, Anderson. I have a question. Do I click on chat, or what do I do? No, it just pops up, right?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Oh, I got it. I got it.
Okay.
Anderson, if you want to unmute yourself, you can ask it.
Okay. So Price.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah. What's up, man?
Hello?
How are you?
Hi.
How's it going, bud?
So, my question is, oh, my connection's bad. Hold on.
No, you're good. I hear you. Go for it. What you got? You're good.
Okay, I'm good. Okay. So, how did you like doing like the trucks for NASCAR for a while?
Oh man, it was so much fun. It was cool because I got that competitive feel like some guy like I did when I was racing, but I was safe. Like I had you had your seat belts, 5-point harness.
Yeah.
Got your Hans device. It was a lot of fun, and a lot of times things were so new to me. It wasn't the same old thing. It was so much fun. And another thing why I enjoyed it so much is I didn't get to practice during the week. Like, they don't let you practice. So I wasn't burnt out from the, riding all week and then going to the races. It was like, I didn't get to drive all week and then got to the races. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of fun. Good question, man.
And Ricky, just so you know, Anderson races. Go ahead, tell him what you do, Anderson. Yeah.
Go ahead. Anderson, your signal might be bad, my man.
Yeah, his signal might be bad, but he does go-kart racing. And
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome.
Won some stuff and shared it with us, so we're super proud to have Anderson on with us, and he's really excited about what he does.
Good job, Anderson. Keep it up, man. Yeah, one thing that was hard for me that I was kind of behind on, I feel, is, I grew up on dirt and then that was on pavement. So it was hard for me to find that edge. Anderson, I'm sure you understand what it's like. So that's good that you are able to race and on pavement. That'll help you, throughout your career.
Awesome.
Uh-oh.
There was a question from Price up here. He said, what do you think about electric bikes? Do you think they will last? Price, you can turn on your mic if you want to speak with Ricky.
Yeah. What do you think about the Altas? You think they're going to start doing them in Supercross, or
Man,
what do you think? Or like
I think there's a home for the electric bikes. I don't know how fast that they will be, implemented into a Supercross situation. They're certainly capable of performing well on a Supercross track. I raced against Josh Hill in Geneva, Switzerland 2 years ago on it, and he was extremely competitive. So yeah, I think there's a place for him. I think this new Husqvarna EE6 is it, I believe, Jeff. I think this is going to be kind of a test platform, and I think if they do well, then the next thing you're going to see is possibly an 85cc electric bike is what my thoughts are. I'm not against it. I think it's cool. One thing that I think it might do is it might help. And JH, my manager who we were talking about earlier, his son, and Miss Lieb, these Stasic bikes. I mean, they're electric bikes, and anytime you ride them in a neighborhood, people are like, "Oh my gosh, it's so cute! That's awesome!" This electric bike. People love them. And those people that love them are probably the same people that when they see a PW50, your little kid on a PW50 making noise, they would probably be telling you, man, you can't ride that thing here in the neighborhood. So I feel like electric bikes, just from a noise point of view, is going to open up the doors for a lot more people buying units. That's my opinion.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, really, like, your grandchild rides one, and JH's son rides one, and people love them. You guys see Josh Hill, he's riding on skate parks on them, and I think there's a place for them. I do think they will be in competitive racing at some point. I just don't know what that timetable looks like. Jeff, what do you think?
Well, the motorcycles are pretty cool. I did a promo for them last weekend at the event. It's going to invite a new customer to our industry, and I don't think that you'll see the gasoline-powered engines be replaced. I see the electrics being in addition to the gasoline engine.
Almost like an option, if you will. Yeah, I'm for it.
And like you said, you can take an electric motorcycle or a Stasic, the Husqvarna, the KTM's, the Altas, and you can put them in places where, because of the noise pollution, it wouldn't be acceptable. So therefore, you'll open that door for somebody else, and if they get on that, then eventually they may want to jump onto a gasoline powered motorcycle.
Perfect.
All right, I think the next question was Ronan. So Ronan, if you want to ask real quick.
How did you push past those plateaus?
Man, that's a good question, Bud. It is really, really frustrating, those plateaus. And here's how it goes. The best way you can see my hand. So you go through these plateaus, and sometimes they take 3 weeks. Sometimes they take a week. It just depends. But you got to you just keep telling yourself, push, push, push. Keep doing it, even though it doesn't seem fun and it doesn't seem that you're making gains. Those are the days that you still have to do the work. You might not, you're getting better, you just don't see it. But those are the days, I mean, simply put, you just got to do the work. So when your parents or your coach is making you do the stuff, You just got to stick with it. There's no two ways about it. That is a great question, because a lot of people, yes, when they get to those plateaus, they flatten out and they lose interest because they don't see the progress that they'd like to be seeing. And those are the days that you just got to keep doing the work. It might take a week. It might take 3 weeks. It might take a month. But over time, you just keep going. You plateau, and then you keep going. You plateau, and you keep going. I will tell you that the amateur, in my opinion, the amateur racing in motorcycles is the hardest part of becoming a professional someday, because it's constant practice. You don't get to race all the time, and you're building that foundation. You're trying to get better, and it's repetitive work all the time, and it can get boring, and it can be not fun. I hated riding when I was your age. Absolutely hated it. Every time my parents would take me practicing, which was a lot, I wouldn't say every time, I would say 70 to 80% of the time I would hate it. But I had an end goal, you know, so I stayed motivated. So you just got to push through. You got to, even though you don't want to do it. So how do you push through those plateaus? You just got to do the work, even though you don't want to. It's like I tell my kids, I understand you're tired. I understand you don't want to do that homework, but you got to do it. Imagine if I didn't go practice when I was tired. I mean, a lot of us adults, I don't know that there's any day that we're not tired. So you just got to push the button, be patient, and stick with it. Really good question. Really good question. Don't get frustrated on those plateaus, man. That is the hardest part of where you're at in your career, is because you don't get to race so much, and it seems like it's repetitive. But when you make it pro someday, then it's fun, because you get to race, and then you can practice just a couple days a week, and then you get to race again and redeem yourself. And you always have something to work for, you know, because you're building off of the last race. Mm-hmm. So that's how you do it. Keep pushing through. I wish I had a funner answer for you, bud, but that's the reality of it. So listen to mom and dad and push through. What do you think, Mom?
Well, I love that you're speaking, you know, a similar message than what we try to send him. And we work a lot with short and long-term goals.
Yeah.
And readjusting those goals, both in training and in racing.
Yeah.
And I have to say, he loves going to training most of the time. So pretty easy. But no, we appreciate the message, and we think you're fantastic, and we appreciate your time today, because you are a huge mentor in this industry for these young guys especially.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to do it. One thing that worked well for me, my mom, like, if she could tell that it was something that I didn't want to do, or which was most of the time, incentives worked well for me. Like, hey, you do good today and you push through today, we'll get a Coca-Cola on the way home. Or
there's Chick-fil-A today.
Yeah, Chick-fil-A. There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Something very simple. Jeff, keep your mouth shut. I don't need any smart talk back about me drinking Coca-Cola, okay? Or having a bag of potato chips or M&Ms. M&Ms were my thing when I was really young. So incentives work good, but I mean, you know, the work you put in now is going to pay big gains when you become 18 or whenever you turn professional. Then it gets a lot easier from a practicing standpoint, because you've built that base already. So just stick with it, my man, and you'll be just fine. Remember, your championships are won on your bad days. So remember that.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good job, buddy. Keep up the good work, man.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
Awesome. Thanks. I think the next one was Mason. So if you want to ask yours real quick.
What you got?
Have you ever had trouble staying motivated to keep racing and riding?
Oh, good question, Mason. I know I sound crazy saying good question, but these are good questions. I never had a hard time staying motivated. I've always been a motivated person. I never needed anyone to kick me in the butt and say, hey, you need to go do this. I did, you know, need people to tell me what to do. But as far as them holding my hand and getting me to do it, never once. Never once did I have a hard time getting motivated to go put in the work. Now, did I like putting in that work, especially at a young age? And I'm being completely honest with you guys. No, I absolutely hated it. But I recognized at a very young age, like I told you guys earlier, the sacrifices that my parents were making and the decision that I made to try to be a professional motorcycle rider. When I had a choice between baseball or dirt bikes, I picked dirt bikes. I had no choice. And so to answer your question, no, I never, ever had a problem with getting motivated. I just didn't enjoy doing it. Good question. Real good questions.
Thanks for answering it, Ricky.
Yeah, bud. Appreciate it.
Awesome. I think, is Ty still in here? Ty Payton?
Ty, I saw you over there. Yeah, this is great stuff. You guys it's fun talking to you guys.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey, buddy, what you doing? Hey, what's up, guys?
Hi.
Hey, Mama. What's happening? Good,
First, I want to reiterate, though, what that mom just said. Thank you for saying all you're saying, because they get very tired of hearing us say work hard, be accountable, and it's great to hear you tell them, because it means a lot more coming from you. So thank you for taking the time and saying all you're saying.
Yeah, no problem. You guys got to do the best that you can every single day. Your parents spend a lot of money on everybody, you know, trying to get you and giving you these opportunities to do well, and you have to take advantage of that. Even though, like, I hated going to practice, I still saw how my parents would take me there and spend money on me to get me to the store, get me to the races and stuff like that. So I didn't want to let them down. So I worked really, really hard. But you know, the cool thing about it, as much as I hated to practice when I was young, the coolest thing was when I was able to win at the races. Then that made all that hard work and those times that weren't so much fun, all worth it.
Totally.
Okay. It's hard to see when it's your guys' age, but if you guys have goals, set goals. And then if you, parents will treat you with something because you did well, which I'm sure they will, because they want to see you do well. And it makes it a little bit easier for you guys.
For sure.
Right?
All right.
What's your
My
question?
question was, did any championships stick out more than another?
Yes. Great one. So my first championship that I won as a pro sticks out, because anytime you do anything for the first time, you remember it. So when you won your first race, that's probably one of your favorite moments, right? So my first championship was 1997 on your Pops team, and we won it with 3 races to go. And it was just so special to me because I wasn't planning on winning the championship that year. And so it was really, really special. Then I have 3 of them that are kind of my favorite, all for the same reason. They're equally my favorite. My second one was 2001, the 250 Supercross Championship, because I was able to beat the King, Jeremy McGrath. And then the last one was 2005, my Supercross Championship. The reason that one was special is because I did it on a Suzuki, and I was just coming back from my ACL surgery, and no one thought that I could do it on a Suzuki. So that one was the most fun. And you know, one other thing, one of the best races that stick out in my head, and I didn't even win that race, was 2007. It was my last Supercross. It was at Orlando. You guys could watch it tonight. It's a pretty good race, but Bubba beat me. And it was just so much fun because we were riding so fast, but it felt so easy. And I remember right after the race, I was like, there is no way anyone could go any faster than what we did that night. So that was my favorite race. But good question, man. Good question.
Thank you, Ricky. Thanks.
You're welcome, buddy.
Take care.
Yep. Y'all have a good evening.
Thanks, Ty. Ricky, we got a couple more if you can hang in there. Oscar's got a question. Okay. Thanks. Oscar, are you there?
Oscar, where you at, bud?
Do you think you would have an edge or a natural talent for kart racing since you raced motocross?
No way, not a chance. You know why? Because I mean, I would have an advantage, but I would not have an advantage on the guys that have been doing it for several years. Now, maybe if I was racing somebody that has the same amount of experience as I do, I would take that challenge. But one thing I learned very quick in four wheels is that I was so far behind on just seat time that that's what killed me the most. But and the thing that was hard about it is we could never practice because NASCAR banned testing, so we couldn't go test. And it was like, how was I supposed to get better? It was almost impossible. So no, I don't think that I would have an advantage like maybe one would think if I did karts, even though with all my experience in NASCAR, I'm racing against too many good guys. It's just the depth level is just too good. I like that. That was good. Do you race karts?
I do, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Good for you. Dude, I love it.
Awesome. I do a little bit of mountain biking not motors.
Yeah.
And I enjoy that, but it's
I mountain bike quite a bit. I cycled today. I rode for an hour and a half. It was fun. One thing I will say about karts is when I was doing the NASCAR stuff and we go to road courses, I was a little bit closer and sometimes better than the guys that were really good on just ovals, because it kind of leveled the playing field out because there's a lot of braking and gas and timing and shifting. I always felt more at home. I did well when I raced the NASCAR. It's now the K&N series. I did well at the couple road races. I think like Watkins Glen, a couple other road courses I did well at. And then Road America in Wisconsin, I raced the Xfinity race and I got ninth. Should have been fifth, but car in front of me dropped oil on the last lap and I went through the gravel pit and all that stuff. Ended up ninth. But that it's not a kart, but it leveled the playing field. I still didn't have an advantage on most, but it definitely leveled the playing field, the road courses. So
awesome.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, good luck to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Oscar. Okay, we've got 3 more questions left. Ricky, if you can hang in there. So Chantel, Ryder, and then Jeff. We'll let you guys go in that order, okay?
Okay.
All right. Hi, Ricky. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. I just have to start by telling you that it's very hopeful to hear you say how much you hated practicing when you were an amateur. Because this guy, I mean, it's a task every day, you know? So that's hopeful for me as a parent, for sure.
Yeah, it's tough at your age, man, because this is when you see all your other friends having a good time, maybe that don't race. And what you guys are experiencing, Mom, what you're experiencing is, for me, that's normal because that's how I was. I can't tell you. I mean, I hated it. And of course, living in Florida, it was always hot. And then it was always sand. I rode in sand all the time. The conditions were awful. So it's completely normal. And there's hope for you, without a doubt. There's hope, and you just have to know that long end goal. You got to know where you're going. And looking back, I think one thing looking back, what would have made it easier for me back then is knowing that, okay, I have like 3 months to practice for this race. Pros, we race every weekend, so it's easy and it's you stay motivated easier because you're racing all the time. So race as much as possible, then it won't seem like you're practicing so much. All you're doing is practicing. And then work towards that goal, and it'll make that time gap not seem as long. See what I'm saying? So if you're going to race the mini Olympics coming up in November, then you got a goal, something to work forward to. And then after many Olympics, then boom, you got the Winter Am Series. So you get ready for that. And I think one thing that is overlooked these days, and I want everyone to listen to this, all these kids that ride at facilities, I think everyone needs to race as much as possible. You can practice as much as you want. Nothing replicates racing. And that's one thing I give credit. Another thing I give credit to my parents. We raced as much as possible. Nothing beats race experience. You can be a training champion. You got to learn to, to show up at the races. So that'll be good. And then you won't get so bored by practicing. And then I'm giving you a tip here, bud. When you race, that means there's more days you don't have to practice because you got travel on Friday and then travel on Monday.
Unfortunately, leading into my question, we don't necessarily have that option anymore. And I'll go into my question. So I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on the industry picking up these kids that are still on mini bikes and grooming them for their career? That's where we're at. He got picked up. Star Racing picked him up 12 years old, and they've moved us to the West Coast from the East Coast. And we just, there's really, the industry is here, but there's doesn't seem to be quite as many races or as there was when we were on the East Coast. So I find us often sitting stagnant and getting just, practice. So yeah, I get where you're going with that, but this is where we are and we deal with it. And, it's one of our adversities and we have to learn to overcome those things. But what's your thoughts on where the industry is going with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's different, from our days. I mean, we had, I say that. I mean, we still had Team Green back then. Yamaha had support, Suzuki. I mean, we did. I don't know that it was to the level that it is now. Like, you guys get picked up by Star or other people get picked up by this brand. And I mean, you guys are on some pretty decent stuff. So it's a fantastic opportunity.
Right.
I'm not opposed to it, as long as the riders are performing and they're doing well on what they're given. If they're not performing on the equipment that they're given, well, maybe they need to, have that taken away from them a little bit. Hey, you don't do well. We're going to take the suspension away from you, or we're not going to give you the best engine. It's almost like debt motivation, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean,
I think they do a pretty good job at that at Star. Yeah. You're rewarded if you do well and you're not if you don't. So yeah, I think they do a very good job at that.
Yeah. That's how I would do it. I mean, if my kids were racing, I'm like, I have a pretty good understanding of what they can do on what kind of equipment. And, if you're performing on your way that you need to and you're doing well, then I'll get you something better. The minute that you don't perform on the better equipment just because you're getting complacent, then you know what? It's time to go back, bring you back down to reality. That's the only thing, is I like what they're doing, but you got to keep the kids motivated and not get lazy,
What do you think it means for those kids, though, that are not getting picked up? Do you think it's going to hurt the industry inevitably?
I mean, it's definitely not ideal, but I don't know just sitting here what the perfect fix is, because all these companies, they want to have who they think is the best guy. And at the end of the day, the people who aren't getting those results, most of the time, there are a few outliers there. But most of the time, the people that are getting the support are the guys that are getting the results constantly. You can't go to Loretta's and win one moto and get 6th and 7th the other two from afar. You just can't do that. And then expect to get a ride when the guys that are getting first, second, first, or first, third, first, at least contending and being right there. You can't expect to get a ride just because you beat one guy one moto. It's just not going to happen. I tell people that all the time. You get, role play it a little bit. This guy, well, he gets this and this. I'm like, okay. And the other person I'm talking to, well, I beat him here. I'm like, okay, how many times did you beat him? Well, I beat him that one moto. I'm like, okay, what'd you do in your other 2 classes? Well, this happened. I'm like, well, dude, you have to beat these guys all the time.
And what happened to him for you to beat him? You got to look at it, the whole big picture.
Exactly. Now there are there are a couple cases, to answer your question, where there's probably some guys coming up on the short end of the stick, but majority of that's not the case.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good luck, man. Keep it up, dude. You're getting to the tail end of it, bud. Just keep it up. And then as far as like your star stuff, I mean, one thing that I've noticed, and I don't know if the Paytons are still listening, but the teams will give you enough most of the time, and sometimes the teams will give you an opportunity. And if you want to stay on the East Coast and you're doing what you need to do when you're performing, it's amazing what they'll let you do. When you're not performing, then you're handcuffed.
Yeah.
Like Mitch Payton, he doesn't have a problem with me living in Florida back in the day, but everybody else had to live in California. That would have been a lot different had I not performed, and rightfully so.
Yep, that's pretty much what happened to us. We were on the East Coast, and he didn't give what they wanted, so they drug us here.
There you go. Yeah, they got to be right under your thumb.
That's it.
Yeah, keep up the good work, man. You're good. You're almost to the edge. You're good.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, guys. Ricky, are you okay to take one more? I don't want to.
Yeah, we'll do one more. No problem.
Okay. So, Ryder, if you still want to ask your question, if not, we'll go to Jeff.
There you go. Driver's ed.
Let's let Colton ask his question.
Are you there?
Okay,
Hey,
we got
Colt.
Ryder on. This is Ryder. We got Ryder on. Sorry.
Oh, got Ryder on.
Yep. Unfortunately, Ryder had to go to driver's ed, but he gave us a list of questions to ask.
Okay.
One of them is, I don't know if you remember him at the Supercross Futures this weekend in Vegas.
Yeah.
He was in the C class. He does really good on starts around here. He's getting better. But that was our issue there in Vegas this weekend, and he wanted to know anything you can tell him on how you get good starts and what to work on.
At bigger races?
At bigger races, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing, tell him it's another race. I know that's so cliche, but it's not. You know how to start. You do it all the time at home. Let's get it here. You don't, if you don't think you get the whole shot, at least try to get top 3.
Right.
Just, how to do it. Just keep telling them, keep telling yourself, I know how to do it at home, and it's no different here. Yes, there are a couple more guys, there's a couple, you have more competition, but don't let that affect your ability to get good starts. That has nothing to do with your ability. Just because there's 5 more fast guys to your right or to your left, that has nothing to do with your ability to start. You go out there and you focus on your start.
At that particular race, if you were racing there, where would you have lined up?
I would have lined up on the inside.
All the way to the inside?
Pretty much. Yeah. Like gate 2 or 3 from the inside I liked.
Yeah. At first he was being pushed way out to the outside in the 250C in schoolboy class.
Yeah.
And he finally lined up like 3 in from the doghouse, and he waited for the crowd to go wide, and then he snuck on the inside and finally was getting like 3rd place.
Yeah.
But he was looking
so the biggest thing why I like starting inside is because when you start anywhere like close to the doghouse, if you don't get a good jump and you don't do your shifting properly, the chances of you coming around the inside of that first corner and being in, top 3 is slim to none. I mean, you have to execute more things properly to get a good start the further outside that you get. When you're on the inside, if you bomb the jump out of the gate, you can at least go up the bales. 9 out of 10 times, everyone pushes out and you can creep around the inside, play a little bit of defense. So that's my theory. Not everybody agrees with that. Most people, they have confidence. They think they have confidence, and they're like, oh, I'm going to get a good start, so I'm going to start over here so I can sweep around everybody on the the outside.
Yeah.
But I just don't agree with that. There's just too many things in my mind that can go wrong.
Okay, another quick one for the little guy. When you were smaller and you would go to new tracks, new jumps, what was your motivation to try the new big jumps? What would you do to get yourself to take the big double or whatever?
Man, you put me on the spot. I was scared to death of a lot of them.
Yeah.
I really was. I mean, there were times where I'm like, oh man, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this jump. I'm scared to do it. And just most of the time, if your competition is doing it and they're doing it relatively easy and they're doing it lap after lap,
right,
then you're good to do it. So if you see your competition, bud, if they're doing it lap after lap and you're just as good as them everywhere else, then there's no reason that you couldn't do it. Always lean on your mom and dad to tell you, hey, you probably shouldn't do this, or hey man, you can do this jump, no problem. Always look to them first. But a good gauge is to see if those guys that your competition is doing it every lap easily. If they're doing it every lap easily and you're just as good of a rider as them, then more than likely you're capable of doing it as well.
Got it. All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it.
Great advice, Ricky.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think Colton has one question and he's just dying over there. Can we let him ask it?
Yeah.
Where are you, Colton?
Good.
What's your question, bud?
I was just saying that my family are longtime fans of Ricky Carmichael, and I was wondering if Ricky Carmichael had ever overcome anxiety, or does he have like any suggestions about it, or for race day anxiety?
Absolutely, buddy. Well, first and foremost, thank you for being a fan, Colton. I appreciate it, bud. And you know what? Can I tell you something?
Yep.
I used to have anxiety all the time as an amateur. All the time. I would wake up in the morning and have butterflies in my stomach all the time. And then the only time I would try to tell myself, man, I had a good week of practice. I'm ready to race. But the only thing that helped me was when I was able to take my first practice lap on the track. I would wake up in the morning and my stomach would be bothering me. And it was just because I had anxiety on race day. And I just would tell myself, to help my anxiety, I would tell myself, I had a good week of practice. I'm going to do my best, and that's all that I can do. And if today my best is only third place, then today I'm just going to try to get third place. Today I know I can get first place, and I'm going to try my best to get first place. And then that really helped me with my anxiety. But what helped the best is when I was able to go out there and ride the track for the first practice.
Yep.
All right, buddy?
Thank you.
All right. You have fun, man.
All right.
Thank you, Colton. I know you were so patient. And I know we didn't get to all of them, but I want to be respectful of Ricky's time and everybody on the East Coast. I know it's getting late over there, but
Jeff, did you have something? What'd you got, bud?
Obviously, these kids have the advantage of the internet and an organization like On Track, to where that they don't actually have to go to school, 8 to 3, like we would have had to back in our days. But there still is schoolwork that has to get done, right? And so I would say, what's your thoughts on, the balancing of the schoolwork versus driving the races on the weekend, practices and things like that, and trying to prioritize certain things throughout the day?
I think the first thing is to not procrastinate. That's the first thing.
I didn't know we were asking you, JH.
Well, I'm the only one on this line with a college education with you two monkeys.
Well,
Give me a couple of years. I'll be there with you, buddy.
I'll still have that many more years ahead of you. Sorry.
You got a college education. You got a college education, and yet I'm the boss. How does that work?
Yeah, well, but I had to balance it with a two-sport athlete in college, and I found until I got my act together good enough to make sure that I did my work on time and not leave it till the end when you're crammed, you didn't have enough time. That was one of the biggest things that when I got that figured out in college, I was rolling at that point.
I think too, and I'm working with it with my kids now, and every parent is going to be different, and I understand that. And school is incredibly important. You know, you just have to find time. So for me, when I was racing, and when I went to school, like I told you guys, all the way through my 9 weeks of my junior year, before I could drive, I did my homework on the way to the practice track, and I did my homework on the way from the practice track. Is it fun? Of course it's not, but I got it done. Don't procrastinate, like JH said. I'm 100% with you. My kids are doing cross country this year, okay? And the rule is you're going to do cross country. It's no problem because it's 2 hours right after school every day. However, if it jeopardizes your schoolwork, then the sport then we're going to have to take a step back, you know, and you're not going to be able to stay at cross country for, you know, the whole practice session. Now, my kids, you know, aren't racing motocross, and it's completely different. I understand that. But, you know, those are my rules, and that's how I do it. If your kid is super successful, you know, also, and just being real with everybody, I think from a parent's standpoint, you know your capabilities of your child and where they're at in their respective sport. So I think there's some give and take. You know, if your child is the best at their sport, whatever they're doing, then you're going to have to prioritize, you know, and that's what I think. But you still, at the end of the day, you still got to get them both done. Bottom line. I don't know if I really answered the question. It's tough. It's tough, but school is important, and you just have to do it. That's the cool thing about homeschooling and this platform with On Track. I think it's becoming more and more popular. I'm a huge fan of it, especially for kids that are super involved in sports. I think it actually gives you more time to do both. I really believe that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty much what it's set up for, so that it's a balance. So what we've been able to do is kind of cut out all the busy work in school. So we don't have homework, we have schoolwork. And we're able to get it done in 3-4 hours a day. And if they're really motivated, they can actually take a day off. But that's, you know, that's hard. Just like what you're saying with on the track, it's the same thing with schoolwork. If you're really focused and motivated, you could actually, you know, get ahead, which is awesome.
Yeah, one thing about schoolwork too, and working with my kids, is if you fall behind, it's that much harder to catch up. So kids that are listening, stay current on your work. You know, because if you don't stay current on your work, then you're constantly playing catch up, and it's not fun, and it's you know, it's hard to catch up. So, like absentees from school, you know, if you miss a lesson day, well, then you're behind, especially math. Math is always evolving. If you miss a day that happens to be a lesson in math because you just didn't feel good and you didn't want to go to school, and really you're not giving 100%, and you look back, you probably would say, yeah, I probably could have gone to school that day. Well, then you put yourself behind. Then you're constantly playing catch up. So then you're playing catch up on another lesson learning day. And it's just a vicious cycle that you don't want to get into. And, you know, hey, my rules are, if you're not throwing up and you don't have the fever, you're going to school. That's the rules, and that's the household rules here at the Carmichael house. Even when they don't want to, that's right. We're going to school. And what the kids need to understand, what you guys need to understand is, that's helping you and setting you up for later in life when you get older like us, and you have to be accountable, and you have companies that are counting on you to be there. you know, because you got to attend to customers or attend to your clients. You have to be responsible and be accountable because people are counting on you. And if you learn to do that at a very young age, that's what school is for. School is teaching you discipline like that. That's why they do that.
Awesome. Thank you, Ricky.
Yes, no problem. This was a lot of fun. I hope it was fun for everyone listening to my story and my advice. I understand that not all my advice is going to be good for everyone and might not see it useful, but if there's little things that you could take, man, I appreciate it. And yeah, if you ever have any other questions, just feel free. Don't, I'm just a normal person.
I know you are, and I love that. I love hearing the conversation, and mostly what touches me are these smiles on these kids that they can ask you, these questions, because our community is like a family. So I want to just thank you again and everybody for coming. This is recorded, so you'll have the recording to look back on. And yeah, go get it, everybody. Have a great night, and thanks for joining us.
All right, guys. Everyone have a good evening. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you around soon.
Okay.
All right.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.